I tend to use the right tool for the right job. And it's always good to know what there is out there. We don't always go for the shiny toy just because it's a shiny toy. The point is that sometimes it's all about speed. I tend to find the middle ground between what's great from a technology perspective, but what is great from a business perspective. Because ultimately, if you don't achieve the goal from the business point of view, you kind of lost to the point of the project. Because sometimes people tend to overcomplicate stuff and all you need is a car with 4 wheels rather than a Ferrari, Because I firmly believe that the more you take care of your people, the more they will take care of your customers. I'm sometimes skeptical about certain things where we're becoming very dependent on the AI. AI helps me be more productive, but I still want to know what is happening and even understand the code.
There still needs to be some creativity, which we humans are the best with. Hey, and welcome to a new episode of Masterful Founders. Today, I'm your host, Christian, and I'm joined by my fabulous guest, Fabio. Fabio is founder of a web agency focused on anything IT and online. So he already told me he's a nerd by heart, and I'm looking so much forward to talking to him and with him about anything tech and what has changed, because I also have a huge background in software as a service and doing some agency work. So Fabio, how did you start learning to code? What was it that you like, okay, this is so fascinating, this weird box on the desk?
When I started out, it was literally the beginning of the internet. We were still with those really noisy modems which would connect and make it's like they're making a whole symphony. I was always a curious person. I love technology. I love to learn new things. I had started out literally with basic HTML, learning literally how to code an HTML page. And back then, obviously, it was so new. It was all reading books and YouTube didn't even exist. To answer your question, it was all about curiosity. I'm very curious. I love learning new things, and I guess it's what keeps me going.
I read on your agency services, you have a broad spectrum of knowledge, which is you're about curiosity and learning. How do you come across new technologies? Because there's every day, you open up Hacker News and you will see there's this thing rewritten in Rust again. Why should I care? And then a few years later, you're like, oh my God, I saw this in Hacker News. I was waving it off and now it became the next big thing. How do you find new technologies and how is it is this relevant or can it be relevant in future?
I tend to play the game a bit differently in the sense where I'm always exploring and even including my team, always pushing them to learn new things. Because ultimately you need to know what there is out there. So in fact, at the moment, we're venturing out onto AI and then onto blockchain. And those are two things, obviously, where you need to stay ahead, So Golang and the type of technologies. I tend to still stick to the VPS side of things, which is maybe an older way of doing things where other people would spin up Kubernetes, or use Docker for it. I tend to say, listen, okay, what are we building? How complex is it? What do we really need for this? Is it as simple as a basic sort of single page app or an application which kind of is purely simple, Laravel application where you can just spin up a VPS and you're more than happy with it. I tend to use the right tool for the right job. And it's always good to know what there is out there. We don't always go for the shiny toy just because it's a shiny toy. If we can build something with Laravel, we're not going to build it in React just for the sake because they would like React or whatever you like, That is something where we've seen a lot. For example, we've seen clients where they build a website using React, and then they've got indexation issues and it's a whole mess. From the SEO perspective, it becomes a nightmare. The point is that sometimes it's all about speed. I tend to find the middle ground between what's great from a technology perspective, but what is great from a business perspective. Because ultimately, if you don't achieve the goal from the business point of view, you kind of lost to the point of the project.
I don't know how often you came across customers where they are pitching an idea in project, they're reaching out to you to make it happen. And then you are gonna challenge them, the easiest question, how much marketing are you gonna pour into this? And then you get fantasy numbers. And then clients are always because I had this a few years ago, we set up an e-commerce system and we had an ERP running and everything. And then I got asked oh, will it handle 100,000 orders a month? I'm no, because this is not what we expected from in the beginning, because we were sitting on the table, discussing what is going to be the marketing spend, what's going to be your vision. And now you're asking this moonshots. Have you had such experience? How do you make sure that your clients setting the expectations straight? What's your experience there? Because I find it super difficult sometimes talking to clients and customers hey, let's come down, let's think, then we can plan a proper project and then go step by step.
It's always about communication. You're asking the client, hey, listen, What are you trying to achieve? Where do you want to go within 3 to 6 months? And obviously, even whatever we build, it's always scalable. Let's say you're running an e-commerce shop and then they run a Christmas campaign. It's not scalable. That is a problem. But I think to answer your question, it's a lot about where you're going to go in the next 3 to 6 months and seeing the application that it's a living thing rather than a sort of something that you're going to play statically there. And then the flip side is you need to be careful where you don't over-engineer stuff, because sometimes people tend to overcomplicate stuff and all you need is a car with 4 wheels rather than a Ferrari, So, yeah.
Oh yeah, I fully agree. I've seen projects where we haven't had any traffic, but it was supposed to be a startup and I joined the project later. So they were already building and I was supposed to take it over and bring it to the next thing. And I was like, okay, how's the architecture? And they were like, oh yeah, we got 25 microservices. It's running Kubernetes on AWS. And I was like, 25 microservices. Do they have processes like how to update like all the dependencies in each microservice? No, we need to think about that. Have you had similar situations?
And yes, for sure. I believe in if you have a nail, you're going to use a hammer. You're not going to use a screwdriver. That is the analogy which I'm trying to push because I suffer from it sometimes. It's all about, I believe, using literally the right tool for the right project.
And sometimes it's also about educating the customer, like what is out there, because sometimes they pick up some terms like, oh, React, we need to use React. We need to use TypeScript. We need to have this and that. And like, wait, let's come back. Let's define the scope. What is the business goal? Like, and then we can think about technology. And then usually startups, they also have to think about hiring. So this is what I experienced firsthand so many times. We made some frankly stupid technology decisions, like chasing the shiny thing. And the shiny thing is attracting people. And this is also like supply and demand. And then suddenly you're like, okay, no, we need someone who is actually really fluent in React and Node and AWS. And oh my God, they are really expensive. This is also one interesting thing. Maybe you can tell us more about like, how do you hire the right people? How do you avoid falling into this trap of, oh my God, I need a rock star. And then you hired someone really expensive who turns out to be like having more attitude than experience. Happened to me before, lesson learned. So please share your experience on hiring the right people and making the right decisions so that you also keep hiring in mind.
I take culture very seriously. Again, we're a team of 11. We're completely remote, so we're all over the world. And the reason why I chose the remote is because it literally allows us to kind of hire the best people from anywhere. So we have literally a 2 interview stage. The first one is understanding the person and seeing if the person is a culture fit. I firmly believe that the more you take care of your people, the more they will take care of your customers. And when you create that culture where people are happy, people enjoy working with you, I think you get more productivity. So for example, we don't really focus on the hours where you need to be there from 9 to 6. It's about what needs to be delivered. So deadlines. First stage is literally about getting to know the person, where I ask questions about what they want to achieve, where they want to go, and ultimately see if we can really fit that dream. And then the second stage is obviously the technical side of things, is literally a live coding session where certain tasks are given and we really sort of get to go to the whole technical thing. Those 2 sessions are enough for me to get an understanding of who the individual is, what they're trying to achieve. I also think that nurturing a good relationship is also a process. I work a lot on career development, training. The process is not just at the hiring, it's also after they join the company. We also offer a referral program internally. For example, whenever we need to find someone, I literally go on Slack, advise everyone and say, listen, hey, just a reminder that we're hiring someone. And they know there's a successful referral fee, that if someone is employed with us for more than 6 months to 1 year, they get a referral fee. So automatically your own employees are going out there asking friends or old colleagues that might be looking for a job, and there's that incentive. And the famous English saying, birds of the same feathers flock together. So it's a case where hopefully people are of the same mindset, people of the same culture. So yeah, that is one thing. And the last thing, you before mentioned the aspect of from the second interview, which is our technical part, is how do they think or how do they approach a problem? During the interview, I'm not shy to tell them, hey, you want to use Stack Overflow? I don't care. Ultimately, it's all about how you use the code. How do you approach the problem,
You're totally right. How are we working these days? We are using ChatGPT. We are using, of course, Google and Stack Overflow because you cannot remember everything. This is what we're doing in the second stage as well. Hey, just work as you would work. Use ChatGPT if you like. Use GitHub Copilot. just get the challenge done and let us see how you approach the problem. I fully agree with you on that. Maybe you can also share your opinion, like how would you structure a remote only team? Because right now I have one client. It's really interesting. They're remote too, completely remote. They're doing meetups once in a while and it works. And how do you manage your team?
Yeah. So again, I believe it's all about communication. It's not easy, of course, but it's also about organizing these meetups. So like once a year, you're actually meeting up physically. It's also about organizing different events. We do a lot of training events. We're all the time organizing things, for example, about Docker, things about, for example, this week where we had something around blockchain, and that automatically brings the different individuals together. It's all optional, so it's not like one of these things where you have to come, but you're automatically bringing people together and people are sort of meeting, discussing new technologies. Someone is obviously discussing the topic. Last time we had one about AI, how to use, for example, Gemini. There's a new feature in Gemini. That is one of the things that we do a lot. Another one, which is a bit more on the fun side, is we tend to do a games thing every month. Life is also needs to be about fun. It cannot be just about work and just about technology. But I think the most powerful thing that works is the meetups. And then we have a weekly stand-up where we go through everything. Everyone discusses their problems or opportunities because it's always good to share that.
I had one thing you were mentioning with hiring the right people and technology choices, Rust versus Golang. For the unaware, like Rust, I think the first time I came in contact with was 2013. So it's a quite recent language. So is Go. And it's highly opinionated. So I would love to hear your opinion on it.
So Golang gives me that satisfaction of working with a language where one, you have a proper compiler, and that is like, it's such a nice feeling. And then it's like the fact that it's so strict. That is something that I love. And also the performance. I built recently a very small crawler, just a check, and it's the way it distributes on multiple threads, and it's so beautiful. Again, with help of Claude, just to be entirely clear here, but just for speed. But I think Go is so performant. That is something I really enjoy. And then why I kept on going with Go is because when you look at certain blockchain technologies, like for example, the Ethereum, the EVM, and this kind of thing are built on Golang and this kind of thing. I still have an interest in learning Rust for sure. I saw recently the Linux kernel, how they're introducing the aspect of Rust. And honestly, it's the usual excuse, it's time, it's just a matter of, hey, listen, spend some time learning a new language. Because if it wasn't for time, I'd be learning Rust, I'd be learning so many other things. There's so many different and exciting stuff. But you tend to get into your comfort zone. And in fact, we're on the blockchain side of things. We're focusing a bit on those chains which are more Golang focused. But at one point, we will definitely pick up Rust because Rust is also being picked up. And we're huge Linux fans also. So definitely something to pick up at some point.
This brings me to the next topic. How did you get into all this blockchain?
A couple of years ago, we were entrusted to get into what we call ICOs. ICOs is essentially selling, you have a particular coin and you want to sell the coin to different people and people can buy it at an early stage. Around 3-4 years ago, this was massive. We were entrusted to get into an ICO project. So we were asked to build where essentially the JavaScript as in connects to different smart contracts. That's where the whole thing kicked off. So it was a very, very successful project. We started getting more involved and we had done another ICO. So we had to build, again, a website using different Web3.js, using MetaMask and all these different wallets. And then we started to sort of say, hey, okay, we've done the front end. Now it's time to sort of bring in, we do the smart contracts ourselves, because before it was a kind of a split team. So one agency was doing the smart contracts, we were doing the UI and the interfacing. That is then when we started to upscale everyone sort of on smart contracts. And now we're also toying around with whole infrastructure side of things.
I just had this morning a conversation with a friend during the run. We were also talking a lot about AI. And then at some point I was like, yeah, what actually happened to everything blockchain? Because he mentioned one of his friends, he is a Web3 developer. I was like, oh, I haven't heard Web3 in a while. Is it like my bubble that I'm no longer getting any information from that corner of the interwebs? Is it still ongoing? And how is it going forward? Like, sure, it was hype at some point and now we are like in some quiet pit. Maybe you can share some insights on what is happening under the hood.
Back around 10, 11 years ago, I was studying on big data. My master's was on Hadoop. But in reality, does everyone qualify for big data? No. Sometimes you just need a MariaDB server or an Oracle DB and a couple of million rows, which does not constitute as big data. Blockchain is the same thing, where yes, we will see a lot of things moving onto the blockchain perspective, like finance, and then sort of other aspects, like, for example, we're seeing a lot of online casinos moving onto the crypto side of things. There are quite a few use cases, like different government services, when it comes to authentication, validation. I think those things will be moving over time. I also think that Web2 is going to still be around for a long time, because I don't believe that every single use case should be on the blockchain. It's a kind of a situation where it's repeating itself. Then a different facet where AI is going to be rolled out on a much more broader scale in comparison to, for example, the blockchain. AI and blockchain are going to fuse together, and then we're sort of one complements the other, and that will help a lot.
Have you come across solutions where AI is being more on-prem and completely decoupled and under your control? And have you looked into this, or what is your general thought on that?
I think AI on-prem, it's the investment needs to be made when it comes to exposing your data. Like, for example, this whole thing with AI and MCP, for those who don't know MCP, ultimately having your services like Slack and whatnot sort of connects to ChatGPT and Claude. So literally these different AIs can consume your data. I am a bit of a security conscious person, and I don't like the idea. It's about a fine balance between the business side of things, because obviously going on-prem, buying all those GPUs and all of that can get very expensive very quickly. And as you know well enough, you have to buy your hardware, and then the hardware can easily get outdated after X amount of time.
Yeah.
So on-prem is something you need to consider based on the data you're exposing. So if it's like a government, I would think twice about exposing the data.
Right now, everyone is jumping on this AI topic and everyone is building something on top of it. And we just got started with LLM, and I'm pretty sure there's going to be some hardware change, which is doing something in hardware way better than it is right now. Or like AI agents, where you can have your specialization, which is then narrowing down the models and the memory requirement and the working data set to work with. So what does it mean now for you as an agency? Is it like giving you the opportunity to be more productive using such AI agents to do almost like boring tasks, but like produce more code?
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
We have a 10% part of the team that don't use AI. They refuse to use, they want to write everything themselves, which I really appreciate and I can really understand. The person is very keen and interested on learning, on developing their skills and knowing the language really well. So that is just one side which I just want to put out there, and I really appreciate those people. And then there are the people which are like me, where, hey, Claude, how do I go about this? And obviously you have to monitor. Sometimes it gets it completely wrong. Sometimes you have to revisit. I'm sometimes skeptical about certain things where we're becoming very dependent on the AI. And even from a vulnerability. So last time I was talking to someone who specialized on penetrating testing, and he was telling me how my job is ballooning because everyone depending on AI, but AI is not handling, for example, cross-site scripting, is not handling SQL injection. Again, these are just examples. And it's not because AI doesn't know about it, but it's because sometimes it needs to be instructed to handle those elements. I am very much a believer that AI helps me be more productive, but I still want to know what is happening and even understand the code, because AI for me is more about saving me that time of having to search in the different docs and looking for the pieces of code and doing the stuff which is rudimentary, that stuff which is boring. Like, for example, I had to literally last time build a small React application to display some test samples of what I was working on. That is an application which I wouldn't build myself because it's just a waste of my time. So
what about the security implications? It's not just all those nitty-gritty hands-on things like cross-site scripting and SQL injection, whatnot. The other day I was hearing about that ChatGPT was giving you like the full-blown product or like the solution for your problem. And it was like, hey, use this dependency, use that dependency. And then turns out like some of them were completely made up. I was like, oh, this is so stupid. And you have to see what was it thinking about and get the right library. But then the second thought was like, someone could just create this library and sneak in code. So this is like a new word of supply chain attacks. You could actually...
Yeah, true. Very, very true. There are definitely going to be those situations where we might not be building the full thing and someone approaches you with that. But I still think that these complex topics, I think AI is still not there yet, at least for now. Junior devs, I think, are going to have it the hardest, where they need to upskill quicker because AI is kind of replacing a bit that layer, in my opinion, the junior to medium.
Junior devs is going to be tough. Companies, they will hire more senior people and they were like, yeah, we can scale up the development velocity with AI because AI is taking care of the boring stuff now. And the seniors, they're going to double check and proofread the pull request the AI agent created. I'm not sure now if this is discouraging people from entering IT and that we might have people who are getting more and more senior, also like senior in age. And they're like, okay, they will die eventually, right? ChatGPT is not perfect and you still need to sharpen your skills by doing something. So this is going to be a really interesting development, I guess, for the next couple of years. I hope that no one gets discouraged if you get above this junior line and you get more senior, more experience. There will always be some room for you because nothing is perfect. There still needs to be some creativity, which we humans are the best with because everything ChatGPT LLM is doing, it's just learning. Sure, it's creative by hallucinating stuff. Is it the
So
right
true,
kind
yeah.
of creativity?
Yes, exactly. Creativity comes in different forms, I guess.
I'm pretty sure that the humans won't disappear from processes anytime soon. How did that happen? How did you get from writing software, cursing at your computer and compiler to, okay, hardware, give it to me?
When I was very young, I used to enjoy building PCs. It's something which I love, home labs, so super passionate about that. In fact, I have my own small home lab, which I put together. Again, obviously, we have our own cloud hosting ourselves, so we manage different VPSs for different clients. And it's something, I guess, which is super challenging because you have to always be on the ball. So you have to always be learning security monitoring and so many different facets. So I think it also satisfies that hunger to always learn more, that mix of curiosity and that aspect of dismantling something and not knowing how to put it back together. I think that is what's kicked off the hardware side of things. So yeah. Nowadays, even with this whole Arduino and Raspberry Pi, the Pico and all of those, and ESP32, it's such a huge... I would also suggest anyone interested, Reddit. Reddit is fantastic. Obviously, YouTube is fantastic because it's all videos, but Reddit, the community is so inspiring.
So if you have one good advice to give out to our maybe completely checked out audience because it was too technical, for the ones who are still with that.
Yeah, I think stay curious and stay consistent. And I say stay consistent more for the entrepreneurship side of things. So if you have anyone who wants to freelance or start their own agency, I would say stay consistent, because that shiny syndrome can detract you very, very easily from getting to where you want to be. So staying consistent, I think, is super important. So yeah.
Stay consistent, stay curious, and there's going to be huge work with things. Thank you so much, Fabio. It was a pleasure. And thanks so much for your time.